Prologue. In the prologue, Essun reflects on memories like insects in amber, fragmented and unclear. She describes a time before the Stillness when the land was different, highlighting a sprawling city called Sil-Anagus, marked by advanced technology and interconnectedness. The city thrives with unique vehicles and living architecture, surrounded by an obelisk that pulses with energy. Essun recalls a boy named Huva, representing her past self. As she transitions to the present, she contemplates the inevitability of destruction, preparing to share the story of how Sil-Anagus ended, initiating a cycle of rebirth through catastrophe. In Chapter 1, Essun awakens as the last orogene, burdened by her powers and the memory of past failures. She seeks her daughter Nassun while navigating the group's journey to Renanis. As they travel, Essun feels the consequences of her actions, causing tension among her companions, including Lerna and Tonki. In a moment of desperation, Hoa, a stone eater, prepares to take her stony arm as part of a mysterious ritual, emphasizing that this act is not one of sustenance but a life-giving sacrifice. Essun finds a sense of connection with Hoa, choosing to trust him despite her fear. In Chapter 2, Nassun stands over her father's corpse after he attacked her, choosing survival and purpose over love. Armed with a sapphire long knife, she confronts Guardians Umber and Nida. Her attempt to ensnare Nida fails, but Steel captures him while Shafa defeats Umber. Nassun pleads with Shafa to spare the other children, grappling with her own monstrous identity. Shafa encourages her to gather useful items from her father's house. Nassun realizes her mother holds the key to the obelisk gate and proposes a long journey to Shafa, who agrees to accompany her as they leave Found Moon behind. Sil-Anagus 5. A new woman, Kalenli, arrives at Sil-Anagus, bringing an air of authority that captivates Hawa and Gaiwa. Kalenli reveals she has arcane awareness and is here to teach them. They learn that Kalenli is a prototype, made before them, and that Core Point and Zero Sight will activate the Plutonic engine in 28 days, marking a significant change. Kalenli's presence challenges their understanding of identity and purpose, hinting at a deeper connection to their origins. As the tuners grasp their true nature, they begin to sense the implications of their existence and the potential for revolution. In Chapter 3, Essun struggles with her injury, which slows the group down. Yika reallocates resources, leaving Essun feeling isolated despite support from Hoa, Tonki, and Lerna. Tonki encourages Essun to reconcile with Yika for the group's benefit. Essun thinks about her daughter, Nassun, who has developed unexpected abilities. While navigating a dangerous stone forest, tensions escalate when Yika confronts the Renanese prisoner Fald, using her powers to incapacitate him. Yika believes integrating the prisoners will strengthen the community's survival, while Essun grapples with her identity and the challenges of leadership in this precarious situation. In Chapter 4, Nassun and Shafa lead 8 children from Found Moon under the guise of a training trip, leaving with insufficient supplies. At a crossroads, Shafa gives survival advice before they continue to Core Point. Nassun reveals her wish to connect with obelisks, learning that their goal is to activate the obelisk gate. They meet Steel, who offers transportation, but mentions a price must be paid. He hints at the significance of silver, guiding them to the old man's pucker, where a ruin lies. Steel also reveals Nassun's mother has joined another community, but isn't coming to find her. Nassun resolves to continue on her path with Shafa. Sil-Anagus 4. The group of energy weavers navigates the aftermath of Tetlawa's loss while preparing for a tuning mission under Kalenli's leadership. As they adapt, tensions rise due to Kalenli's limited availability for guidance. The conductors emphasize the importance of exposure to the outside world for their training, prompting the group to don disguises. Kalenli helps them remove the paint meant to help them blend in, challenging their perceptions and provoking discussions about legacy and acceptance. As they prepare to leave, the narrative highlights the fear and misunderstanding they face from those outside their community, emphasizing their struggle for acceptance. In Chapter 5, an attack on the camp occurs before dawn, prompting Essun to warn Yika about a nearby fulcrum. Despite efforts to communicate with another orogene, the camp is ambushed by raiders. Essun encounters Maxixi, an injured acquaintance, and they discuss their pasts. Maxixi leads a small group of Comless and proposes a deal for supplies in exchange for his skills. Essun offers to advocate for him and his group to Yika. They decide to approach Yika together, aiming to secure a future for Maxixi and his people as Essun grapples with her own identity and past. In Chapter 6,